The first time he called her a mistake, it was in a crowded room full of laughter, so loud that no one noticed the sound her heart made when it cracked. He didn't even look at her when he said it. He was talking to his friends, waving his drink in the air, smiling like he'd just told a joke. Yeah, he laughed, that relationship? Total mistake. She stood only a few steps away, holding a plate she'd forgotten to eat from, realizing in that moment how invisible pain can be when it lives inside someone else's chest. Her name was Elena, and for 3 years she had loved him in all the quiet ways people never post online. She remembered his coffee order, woke up early to iron his shirts before important meetings, and defended him when others questioned his choices. She believed in him when he doubted himself. So when she heard that word, mistake, it didn't just insult her. It erased her. It rewrote every sacrifice into something shameful, something he wished he could undo. That night, Elena went home alone. She didn't cry right away. She sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing her coat, staring at the wall like it might explain how love could disappear so easily. When the tears finally came, they were quiet, embarrassed tears, as if even her sorrow was something she wasn't allowed to express. By morning, she had made a decision she didn't yet understand fully. She would leave, not because she was weak, but because she deserved better than someone who reduced her to a regret. Leaving was harder than staying. It meant packing memories into boxes, deleting photos she once thought she'd show her children, and learning how to sleep without the sound of his breathing beside her. Friends told her she was strong, but strength felt nothing like they described. It felt like showing up to work with swollen eyes. It felt like smiling when people asked how she was doing. It felt like pretending not to flinch when his name came up in conversation. Weeks turned into months, and Elena began rebuilding herself piece by piece. She joined a small gym near her apartment, not to change her body, but to exhaust her thoughts. She started painting again, something she had abandoned because he once said it was cute, but unrealistic. With every brushstroke, she reclaimed a part of herself she hadn't realized she'd lost. She learned that healing wasn't a straight line. Some days she felt powerful, unstoppable. Other days, a single song on the radio could pull her back into the past. Then one evening, after a long day, she stopped by a quiet bookstore to escape the noise of her own mind. That's where she met Daniel. He was standing in the philosophy section, holding 2 books, clearly undecided. When he asked her opinion, she answered without thinking. They talked for almost an hour, not about heartbreak or past relationships, but about ideas, dreams, and the strange ways people find meaning after disappointment. When she left, she realized she had smiled without forcing it for the first time in months. Daniel didn't arrive in her life like a dramatic rescue. He didn't promise to fix her or fill the empty spaces. Instead, he listened. He noticed when she went quiet and didn't rush her to speak. He admired her paintings without calling them impractical. He respected her boundaries, understanding that trust isn't given, it's earned. Slowly, Elena felt something unfamiliar growing inside her, safety. As their connection deepened, Elena faced a new challenge, the fear that she might be making another mistake. The words her ex had spoken echoed in her mind during moments of happiness, like a warning she couldn't silence. What if she really was the problem? What if she wasn't enough? One night, overwhelmed by doubt, she finally told Daniel everything. She expected pity. Instead, he looked at her with calm certainty and said, "Someone else's inability to value you does not define your worth." Those words didn't magically erase her pain, but they settled into her heart like truth. Over time, Elena began to see herself through different eyes, not as someone who had failed, but as someone who had survived. She grew more confident at work, finally applying for a promotion she'd once been too afraid to chase. She spoke up. She took space. She stopped apologizing for existing. Months later, at a mutual friend's event, Elena saw her ex again. He looked the same, confident and loud, but something in her had changed. When he noticed her and walked over, his smile faltered. He asked how she'd been, his tone casual, almost curious. She introduced him to Daniel, who stood beside her not as a replacement, but as a partner. There was no bitterness in her voice, no need to prove anything. In that moment, Elena realized she no longer needed validation from someone who once diminished her. Later that night, as she and Daniel walked home, Elena reflected on how far she'd come. Being called a mistake had nearly destroyed her, but it had also forced her to choose herself. It pushed her toward a life where love didn't hurt and respect wasn't negotiable. She understood now that sometimes, people label others as mistakes because they are afraid to face their own failures. Elena wasn't a mistake. She was a lesson. A reminder that being replaced doesn't mean you were lacking, it means someone else recognized your value when another couldn't. And as she held Daniel's hand, feeling steady and whole, she realized the most important truth of all: the right person doesn't make you feel small. They make you feel seen. And that is how another man didn't just take her place in someone else's story, he stood beside her as she finally took her place in her own.